Moose, and thank you so much for joining me back here. Today we are going to talk about my reading stats for 2022. I'm excited to make this video. I read more in one year than I ever did in any other year in 2022. My son is awake and home right now. I usually record when he is at school and my daughter is napping, but he's home. My schedule is getting busier, so I just have to record when I have time. So if you hear him or you see him, he's precious. You want to say hi?
Mommy.
Called you?
Yes.
Who is that? Is that you?
Yeah.
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 Who's this?
That's what.
That's Buzz. Let me just say that this video is only going to include books that I read for pleasure. I do beta read. I freelance as a beta reader. And so I read a lot more books and pages than what will be included in this video. If I were to count those beta reading jobs, this list would be significantly bigger. I do jobs anywhere from 2,500 words, which is like 5 to 10 pages, depending on the writer, all the way up to like 500-page manuscripts. So it varies widely. I did almost 100 jobs just from like August to December. And so pages, words, all that kind of stuff would be significantly different if I counted my freelance work in this video. So I'm not going to do that. Right now, I'm just going to talk about all of my entertainment reading stats from 2022. Like I said earlier, I read more books in 2022 than any other year so far. I was actually going back and I was looking at my Goodreads reading challenges and was significantly shocked by the difference. In 2019, I read 27 books. 24 was my goal. In 2020, I read 55 books and 45 was my goal. 2021, I read 60 books out of 60. 60 was my goal. I remember that year I like down to the wire was picking short books so I can make my goal. And then last year in 2022, I read 102 books out of 100, my goal. It feels great. To be honest, most books I've ever read. 100 is also my goal for 2023, so we'll see how that works out. I am working more and life is just busier. I'm back in school, so I don't know if I'll hit 100, but that is my goal as well for 2023. Let's just jump into it. 2022, 102 books. I'm gonna go through Storygraph and show you guys my stats. I'll put it over here so you guys can see it along with me, but I have my 2022 stats open. There we go, 102 books. Met my goal of 100. All right, here's where I'm really interested because I know that a majority of my books were rom-coms. So according to Storygraph, I read almost 40,000 pages, 39,136 pages, which is impressive. Most of my reads were lighthearted / emotional. I think they've just put emotional because they're romances, and you know, oftentimes romances have that give and take where something emotional happens and then they move past that hurdle. I think that's where that's coming from. Funny, again, rom-coms. I was predominantly wanting funny romances, so that makes sense to me. Adventurous, I did read some fantasy books in 2022. I'm sure that's where that comes from. Dark, tense, mysterious. I read some thrillers for the first time last year, so I think that's where those come from. I think I only read 3 or 4, but they were great, and I want to read more in this year. A little bit of sad and reflective, relaxing, inspiring, informative. I think I may have logged like one of my textbooks maybe on my reading chart. Maybe that's where informative comes from because I'm not usually a huge nonfiction reader or like informative reader. So maybe that's where that comes from. All right, pacing. Medium pacing, that makes sense to me. Slow pacing, not very much. Fast pacing, I'm curious what they say slow pacing is. Single and Ready to Jingle. I would not consider that slow paced. Tourist Trap, yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe. Fellowship of the Ring, yes. Very slow. Kingdom of Ash, yes, it was very slow. Really Rearranged, maybe. Anyway, maybe in between slow and medium. I wouldn't necessarily consider it slow, but it definitely wasn't fast. Cell, I would say, yeah, was pretty slow, but in such a good way. All right. What do they consider fast? I think they consider the 12 Holidays just because it's a novella. And a Holidays, I would say, is more medium paced personally. The Soulmate Equation, I would not say is fast paced. I don't agree with that. Dowley for Aunties was a whirlwind. That one was fast paced, but it was fast paced consistently throughout the entire book. Love to Heart, So Fierce and Broken. That one was so good. Obsidio was another great one. That one was pretty fast paced as well. Crown of Gilded Bones, yeah. The Maidens was fast paced and it was excellent. Loved it, was one of my favorites of the year. I talked about it in some of my videos. Let's move on. Page number, anywhere from 300 to 499. I'm a little surprised by this because, like I say, a lot of my reads were rom-coms and I feel like they're typically on the shorter side. More so less than 300 pages, but maybe not, I guess. And the 500 plus have to be like my Sarah J. Maas and all that kind of stuff because those are usually pretty big. 100% fiction. Makes sense. Not shocked by that. I don't read really any nonfiction unless it's stuff that I have to read for like school. I'm trying to get better. I am actively reading, not like a self-help, I don't know, self-improvement book. I don't know how to word it. Like a faith-based book to just help me be a better mom, be a better spouse, be a better woman. I'm reading one of those right now and it's the first time I've ever actually read one of those. So this statistic might be a little bit different come next year. But for right now, 2022, all fiction. This one is not correct at all. I did not read a whole lot of print. I don't really specify whenever I log my reads onto Storygraph and Goodreads. I just don't worry about it. But I will say predominantly I read a lot of audiobooks in 2022. Majority of the rom-coms that I read were audiobooks and a majority of my reading were rom-coms. Otherwise, I read a lot digitally. I use ebooks. I read on my phone quite often and very few physical books nowadays. That's one of my goals for 2023 is to read more physically. I've already kind of gotten on the right track. I've read one book physically so far. It is, what, the 14th today? So I'm happy with that. No. I read 2 books physically so far. Look at that. Doing better. Most read authors. Emma St. Clair. I love her. I've talked about her a ton here on my channel. Love Cliches, The Graham Brothers, Royally Rearranged. Loved all of them. I binged her last year in 2022. She's one of my favorite rom-com authors. So I'm not surprised to see her on this list. Sarah J. Maas, I read Throne of Glass. I sat down and I committed and I read through Throne of Glass in 2022. So yeah, I read a lot of her books last year and also Crescent City I read last year as well. And I think I reread ACOTAR. I read all of Sarah J. Maas in 2022. I don't know that I logged ACOTAR because I just listened to those as an audiobook. But yeah, a lot of Sarah J. Maas. Naomi Novik, love her. I think it's saying 5 because I read the Soulmance series by her this past year, but I read these 2 twice. So I read these 3, I read these 2 twice. So I guess that's where they're getting 5. I technically did read her books, 5 different times. But I technically think I only read 3 books of hers in 2022. Lisa K. Adams is another new favorite rom-com author. Love her. Romance Book Club. Talked about it before. Excellent. Jennifer L. Armentrout from Blood and Ash. I did reread. Jennifer Beckstrand is another one of my favorite romance authors. She's not a rom-com author. She's an Amish romance author. So if you're looking for a little bit of faith-based romance, she's a great option and often infuses her stories with humor, which I personally love. Jay Kristoff, Amy Kaufman, Illuminae Files. Love those. Melanie Summers. Oh yeah, she wrote some royalty rom-coms that I read, but I also binged her series as well. I'm not surprised by like the first 3 though. The first 4. They're great. Number of books and pages. I read a lot in March. I knew March was going to be my like top reading month. I think I read something like 29 books, 30 books, I think is what this says. Is this one? Can I click on it? I can't click on it. It's just being finicky. 30 books. 30 books in March is what I read, which is a little crazy. All audiobooks though. A lot of audiobooks. March is the month that I got into rom-coms. So this I knew was going to be the case. My husband was gone this month on like a work trip for like most of the month, like 3-4 weeks, I don't know. So all I had time to do after the kids went to bed was read. I wasn't back in school at this point, so I just had free time to do what I wanted to do, and that's what I did, was read and listen to rom-coms. So I'm not surprised by that. January, I read like 5 or 6 books in January. My second one was November. 14 books in November. That's a little shocking to me. This might not be completely accurate because a lot of the times I kind of forget to update my reading logs on the days that I actually finish the book. So just because it says November, I may have finished it like October 28th or something like that and just didn't remember to log it until a few days later. I think that may have been what happened in March. I'm pretty sure I read 29 books in March. Either way though, I hit a little slump in July. That makes sense. We go on vacation in July most of the time. Right after the 4th of July is usually when we take our family vacation. And we go see our family back home in West Virginia, that type of stuff. And then I don't give ratings. I find them kind of restricting. I don't know. I've thought about starting star ratings just to give myself a better like feeling for how I thought about the book when I first read it, but I still feel like in my gut it's a no for me. Because especially, I know myself, I have a first impression of a book, and then after I have time to sit and think about it, my perception of it changes, my opinion of it changes. So even though I gave a book like 4 stars, if I went back and I looked at it a month later, it might be like 3 stars, or I might enjoy it even more and look back on it with fond memories and it might be 5 stars. So I'm not doing star ratings. I don't think that's something I'm going to start in 2023. 2023 goals. I've already given 1 or 2. Read more physically, for sure. I want to branch out more. Not necessarily into new genres, but I read a lot of rom-coms in 2022. So I would like to read more fantasy. I love fantasy. It's my favorite genre, and I didn't read enough of it in 2023. So I want to read more this year. And maybe thrillers as well, because I really did enjoy those when I read those as well. I'm also debating, I'm nervous to say this. I want to write a book. I want to write a romantic comedy in 2023. Not necessarily a reading goal, but a book goal. I'm a little anxious about it. So if you have any writing tips, let me know down below. I've never considered myself a writer. It's not really anything I ever thought I would want to do, but that is one of my goals for 2023. So there we go. Those are my stats for 2023. No, 2022. I'm pretty happy with them. When I go to make the same video next year, I don't have as high as of expectations for 2023, just because I am busier now. I just have more on my plate. Work, school, family. I did not have all of those obligations in 2022, so I don't expect to read quite as much in 2023. But we'll see how it goes. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, be sure to subscribe down below and leave a comment. Let me know how your 2022 went. I hope it went well. I hope it goes even better in 2023. You guys are awesome. I'm so thankful for you, and I'm blessed that you tune in every video. And we'll meet back here next time.